In December of 2023, a Texas teacher was arrested on a dozen charges, including assault and indecency, after it emerged that she'd had relations with a female student in her mid-teens. Law enforcement in Brazoria County, Texas, was approached in September by a woman in her 30s who revealed that she'd been abused by her teacher in the late 2000s. The victim identified the teacher as 43-year-old Brandyn Hargrove, who taught English at Brazos Wood High School. An investigation was launched, and witness testimony proved crucial in building a case against Hargrove. The illicit relationship had reportedly started in 2007 when the victim was a high school freshman and Hargrove was 27 years old. It lasted for 2 years and the intimate encounters reportedly took place off campus. Unfortunately, this happens more and more these days, Clute Police Department Chief James Fitch told the media, adding, "Since that time we have other laws in effect. The improper relationship between educator and student was not in effect back then. The charges didn't have a statute of limitations, however, which allowed for them to be brought forward years after the crime had occurred. Ironically, Hargrove was one of the high school's most highly regarded educators, having won numerous awards, including Teacher of the Year. She and her family were well known and well respected in the community. As of the latest updates on the matter, Hargrove was out of jail in lieu of a $240,000 bond, and the school district held a meeting to propose her termination." Number 9. Michael Emrick. In January of 2016, Michael Emrick was driving around in a stolen GMC Sierra when he stopped at a convenience store in Badin, a borough 30 miles west of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He entered the store, which was called Sheets, and shoplifted several unspecified items. He was spotted by staff who alerted law enforcement. When Badin officers responded to the shoplifting complaint, they found 36-year-old Emrick in the pickup truck, but he ignored their commands and refused to get out. The police noticed that he was wearing a t-shirt that read, "Really good at making bad decisions." The ironic message would prove an apt assessment both for the actions that led to the police encounter and for the chain of events that followed. Unable to gain Emrick's compliance, the police shot him with a taser, but it proved ineffective. In the moments that followed, the suspect slammed on the gas and drove forward. One officer got caught in the vehicle as it pulled away and was dragged for a short distance before he was thrown to the ground. Fortunately, the cop only sustained minor injuries. A chase ensued, during the course of which Emrick reportedly threw drug paraphernalia out of the pickup truck's window. After 15 minutes, he crashed the stolen vehicle into a shed. He abandoned it and tried to flee into the nearby woods, but was captured shortly thereafter. The bad decision maker faced a variety of felonies and misdemeanors that included aggravated assault, criminal mischief, receiving stolen property, reckless endangerment, theft, and fleeing police. Number 8. Jennifer and Joseph Wolfthal. In January of 2025, Jennifer and Joseph Wolfthal were sentenced to 12 and 10 years in prison, respectively, for running a house of horrors in which they gruesomely abused their 3 adoptive children. The Wolfthals had adopted the children in 2014, and the case began after Joseph took their daughter to the emergency room in late 2020. Staff determined that she was suffering from pneumonia and a staph infection, along with liver and kidney failure. She was also malnourished and exhibited open wounds and bruises. Joseph, who worked as an engineer for Lockheed Martin, claimed that her injuries stemmed from falls and brushing her teeth too hard. There was sufficient evidence to suspect that he and Jennifer were abusing their daughter, and they were arrested on New Year's Day 2021. When the authorities spoke to their other children, the extent of the abuse was revealed. When dishing out punishments, the couple took turns hitting them in the same spot until they bled. Among the objects used as a whacker, which was described as an oblong object covered with cloth. Aside from the beatings, which reportedly occurred every night, the children were locked in their rooms for extended periods of time, spent months without bathing, and weren't fed enough. The parents sometimes doused their beds in cold water and forced them to sleep in that state overnight. The dark, ironic twist was that Jennifer was the author of a children's book called A Real Friend. It was about a boy who built a robot to be his new friend after quarreling with his human best friend. The book was listed on Amazon, but it was removed from sale following news of her arrest. According to Jennifer's author description, she had a degree in elementary education and she'd taught public school for 8 years. She, however, chose to homeschool her children. Recounting the abuse, one of the children reported spending virtually all the time in her bedroom, which was locked from the outside. She was not allowed to talk to anyone, including her siblings, and could only communicate with Jennifer and Joseph. The couple also forced the children to perform physical exercises and repeatedly write sentences as punishment. When the authorities searched their home, they found over 1,100 notes that read, My body stays flat on the bed at all times. I was never given permission to move or say anything else. Now I get to write about this along with everything else. I'm a fool. Jennifer and Joseph faced over 100 years behind bars if convicted on all counts against them. However, in mid-January of 2025, they accepted plea deals and admitted aggravated child abuse and neglect of a child with great bodily harm. Number 7. Ricky Pearsall robbery. Ricky Pearsall, a rookie wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, was walking alone to his car after shopping in Union Square, San Francisco, on August the 31st of 2024. The NFL athlete was due to attend an autograph signing event when he was ambushed on the street by a teenage gunman. The suspect was reported to have aimed the pistol at 23-year-old Pearsall and tried to take his Rolex watch. Ironically, the would-be robber would end up being shot with his own gun. A struggle for the weapon ensued, during which the 6'1" athlete got the better of him. As the scramble unfolded, the gun went off, striking Pearsall in the chest and the thug in the arm. The latter fled but was arrested about a block from the incident. Bystander cell phone footage showed a shirtless Pearsall being walked to an ambulance by first responders. His mother revealed in a social media post that the bullet had gone through the right side of his chest and out his back without striking any vital organs. Pearsall was released from the hospital and 9 days later attended his team's season opener against the New York Jets. The home crowd at Levi's Stadium greeted him with applause, and he presented signed 49er jerseys to the police officers and medical staff who'd helped him in connection to the shooting. The unnamed teen, who was reported as being a high school senior, was also treated for his gunshot injury, and he recovered. In September of 2024, San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins charged him with attempted murder, assault with a semi-automatic weapon, and attempted second-degree robbery, in addition to several gun-related charges. As of the latest updates on the case, Jenkins' office was in the process of deciding whether to charge him as an adult. Number 6. Dylan Frost. In June of 2024, the frontman of indie rock band Sticky Fingers was arrested for shoplifting in Sydney, Australia. At around 1 p.m. on the 27th of the month, Dylan Frost went to the Woolworths Metro in Haymarket and tried to steal a $6.50 roast chicken and a $2.65 ice break double espresso coffee. The musician's girlfriend, 23-year-old Elisa Ford, was also arrested after she shoplifted a bag of Lifesavers raspberry sticks. The couple both pleaded not guilty to their charges. As news of the incident spread, many online users remarked upon the obvious irony of the lead singer for a band called Sticky Fingers being charged with theft. In the arrest's wake, the band posted on its Facebook page that 34-year-old Frost was dealing with alcohol addiction and mental health issues and had been diagnosed with bipolar schizophrenia. The band added that he planned to seek treatment and rehabilitation. Frost was regarded as a controversial figure, and he publicly admitted during a 2018 interview that his struggle with substance abuse had caused people to feel unsafe around him. Frost was at various times accused of racism, transphobia, and aggressive behavior. He was thrown out of a Sydney pub in 2018 after he reportedly verbally abused transgender artist Alexandra V. Tanigina. As reported by The Australian, he told her he hated transgender feminists, that he couldn't be sexist because his mother was a feminist, and he couldn't be racist because he was a Maori. A few years prior, he'd been accused of physically threatening Indigenous singer Thelma Plum. Frost at one point fought with Paddy Cornwall, the band's bassist, at a bowling club in Marrickville. During the brawl, Cornwall reportedly struck Frost in the head 26 times. Both men were charged in connection to the altercation, and the bassist was jailed for 18 months. In 2021, Frost's volatility resulted in the band losing support and opportunities and him going to rehab multiple times. The singer drew further public outrage as during an interview, he summed up his antics with a perceived carefreeness by saying, "Boys will be boys." According to updates on his shoplifting case, Frost was set to fight the charge in the summer of 2025. Number 5. Gianluca. In early February of 2025, a video started circulating on social media of a senior citizen in Argentina turning the tables on an armed carjacker. The 78-year-old man had just parked his SUV in front of his home in La Matanza, Buenos Aires. A pickup truck pulled up next to his vehicle, and an assailant, reported as being in his mid-teens, emerged with a pistol in hand. The pensioner had his own gun close by in the car. He immediately grabbed it and fired a shot which struck the suspect. The teen, only identified in news reports as Gianluca, dropped into the street. The 78-year-old shot him again before firing in the direction of his fleeing accomplices. Gianluca died of his gunshot wounds. Ironically, it would emerge that he'd attempted to carry out the random carjacking with a prop weapon. The man whom he and the other teens had targeted suffered from cardiac issues. He'd been robbed before and was beaten during that incident. He consequently began carrying a pistol and installed extensive surveillance around his home. Speaking to La Nación newspaper, residents from La Matanza reported that gun violence had become a common occurrence in the neighborhood. One resident who worked as a ride-share driver said that he was nearly shot the night before the deadly incident. 3 intruders, who appeared to be underage, got out of a vehicle and opened fire at him out of nowhere. The man said that he was saved by his fast reaction of switching into first gear and pulling away at speed. In reference to the fatal shooting, the ride-share driver told La Nación, "Everything is a disaster. It was never so bad. 14 or 15-year-old kids who go out to kill anyone. Well, now it was one of them's turn." It was unclear if the senior citizen was charged for the incident, but La Matanza homicide prosecutor Diego Rui spoke out in support of the man's right to defend himself. Number 4. Matthew Nieveen. On Halloween in 2010, law enforcement in Lincoln, Nebraska, pulled over an F-150 pickup truck for driving erratically. The police found that the driver, 19-year-old Matthew Nieveen, was returning from a party and saw that he was dressed as a breathalyzer. The portion of the costume around his crotch read, "Insert inside mouth and blow here." Officers observed that Nieveen exhibited watery eyes as well as slurred speech, and inside his pickup truck they found beer and a bottle of vodka. The blood alcohol reading on the human-sized breathalyzer costume was 6.9, and the needle pointed to brain damage. While Nieveen's actual BAC was far from that figure, he was still found to be more than twice the state limit. The team was arrested and charged with driving under the influence and being a minor in possession of alcohol. Local law enforcement took a photo of Nieveen in the arrest wake but obscured his face when announcing the incident on social media. The police chief wrote, "I can't make this stuff up," noting that Nieveen wasn't the only person to be arrested in costume, as he was joined at the detox center by a French maid and a naughty border patrol agent. Number 3. Peter O'Halloran. Leading up to 2022, Englishman Peter O'Halloran had carried out burglaries and home invasions across 5 counties over a period of 3 years. One of the most high-profile cases involved ransacking the residence of an elderly Northamptonshire couple in 2019. While they were out of town, O'Halloran disabled their security systems and spent several hours at their property before making off with a haul of valuables estimated at £700,000. The items he pilfered included designer watches, jewelry, and other family heirlooms. The man he victimized died a few months after the break-in, and his widow was committed to bringing a resolution to the case, even offering a £10,000 reward that was featured on the Crime Watch program. O'Halloran targeted roughly a dozen other homes, including one in Norfolk and at least 4 in Cambridgeshire. As investigators later determined, O'Halloran regarded himself as a master thief. That viewpoint would, however, be regarded as ironic given the slip-ups that ultimately led to his capture. In March of 2022, he used a ladder to break into a home in Gildon, Morden, Cambridgeshire. He was not only caught on CCTV scoping out the property, but he also left his DNA on the ladder before making off with jewelry and watches. In November of 2022, law enforcement raided O'Halloran's home near Stowmarket in Suffolk. In a secret desk compartment, officers found watches, a bag of jewels, £60,000 in cash, and rare coins worth up to £80,000. Owners would subsequently identify some of the items in the cache as those taken from their homes. The total value of O'Halloran's secret stash was estimated at £500,000. In his home, law enforcement also found the book Confessions of a Master Jewel Thief, written by American criminal Bill Mason, who claimed to have stolen £27 million of property from homes and hotel rooms during the span of his criminal activity. The legal proceedings that followed culminated with O'Halloran pleading guilty to 3 burglaries, the high-profile one in Northamptonshire, another in Norfolk, and the Cambridgeshire raid, where he'd left the evidence that led to his apprehension. In November of 2023, O'Halloran was jailed for 12.5 years at Cambridge Crown Court. Today's topic was requested by Commander Hawk 22 and Sean Delap 8587. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Joshua James Sommers. On February the 4th of 2025, hundreds of worshippers gathered at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Lourdes in Spokane, Washington, for the second of 9 nights of prayers that constituted the Lord's Novena for Healing Service. As seen in a Facebook livestream of the event, Rector Father Darren Connell was kneeling next to Bishop Thomas Daly and the parochial vicar, Father David Gaines. Roughly 40 minutes into the service, a man jumped out of his seat in a first-row pew. He rushed towards the altar and charged Gaines. The priest rose to his feet and put his hands up before he was punched by the intruder. The attacker was later identified as Joshua James Sommers. Ironically, Gaines and the other men of faith were in the midst of a prayer giving thanks at the time. Gaines got on top of Sommers and they briefly wrestled before others in the altar and in attendance rushed in to help. A microphone picked up a voice telling the assailant, "It's okay, buddy. It's all right. It's okay. Just calm down." Sommers' groans and unintelligible yells echoed through the cathedral, but he was eventually subdued and escorted out by security. In the moments that followed, Connell resumed the service and also included a prayer for Sommers. "We prayed for him because, again, whatever demons he was struggling with need to be healed," the priest later told a media outlet. Connell, Gaines, and Daly were shaken up by the incident, but they weren't injured. Sommers' reason for charging the priest was unclear, but there was speculation that his actions were rooted in his mental health struggle. He was a diagnosed schizophrenic with a history of assaults going back to 2003. Connell was quoted as saying whatever his motivation was, it wasn't well. So it's providential or ironic that we are in these days of healing. Sommers was booked at the Spokane County Jail on multiple charges that included third-degree assault, fourth-degree assault, and fourth-degree attempted assault. Right after number 1, we will line up our episode from a while back about when dangerous dogs go wrong. Stick around if you haven't seen that one and are longing for some more They Will Kill You content today. Number 1. James Kilcer. On October the 20th of 2021, Arizona man James Kilcer stopped at a Chevron gas station store in Yuma while on his way to work. The 32-year-old was at the counter when an armed robber entered the store with 2 accomplices following behind. As seen in CCTV footage, the thugs were wearing face masks. The gunman pointed the weapon at the clerk and made his way to the counter, but the robbery attempt would backfire dramatically. Kilcer was a Marine veteran, experienced in dealing with high-pressure situations. He would later tell a media outlet, "I scanned them for any other weapons and didn't see any. I knew he was my guy at that point." In a split second, Kilcer dropped his keys and grabbed the weapon. The man recounted, "I hit him and the gun before my keys hit the ground. That's how fast I moved, and I'm a little chubby guy. I've put on a couple pounds since the Marine Corps." Kilcer pushed the weapon to the side, charged the gunman, and struck him in the face. While still clutching his shopping bag, the punch was reported to have broken the suspect's nose. The other would-be robbers fled in a panic, and one of them briefly slipped and fell to his knees before leaving the store. Off camera, Kilcer and the gunman struggled for control of the weapon, each trying to reach the trigger first. Kilcer won the scramble, and he would subsequently remember, "As all this was happening at frickin' light speed, I was counting trigger pulls, and I realized I was pulling the trigger, making attempts to pull the trigger, but everything was just jammed up. It would emerge that the weapon was loaded, but that it had malfunctioned." Kilcer disarmed the gunman and held him from behind as a hostage with the gun pressed to his head in case his accomplices would have tried to intervene. However, the ex-Marine quickly realized that the other thugs had fled the scene. He asked the robber-turned victim for his age and learned that he was only in his mid-teens. Kilcer held him down inside the store until the arrival of law enforcement. Footage of the incident went viral and the former soldier became a media sensation as he made local and national headlines for his bravery. He maintained that he wasn't a hero, as others labeled him, and that he just did what needed to be done. Kilcer stated that the Marine Corps had taught him not to mess around, noting that he took his personal safety and the safety of others seriously at all times. When asked in an interview what message or advice he'd give the gunman, Kilcer said, "That boy needs some Jesus. He's going down the wrong path real quick." The unnamed teen faced armed robbery and aggravated assault charges. Later in October, Kilcer was presented with the Yuma County Sheriff's Office Citizens Valor Award for extraordinary heroism and exceptional courage while voluntarily coming to the aid of another citizen during an incident involving criminal activity at extreme, life-threatening, personal risk in an attempt to save or protect human life. A Bexar County grand jury indicted a couple in connection with a deadly pit bull attack that took place on February the 24th of 2023. The couple, Christian Alexander Moreno and Abilene Schneider, both aged 31, had been arrested after 2 of their dogs escaped their fenced yard in San Antonio and attacked 81-year-old Ramon Nahira Jr. The dogs also injured the victim's wife, 74-year-old Juanita Nahira. The Nahiras were mauled when they tried to visit the home of a friend who lived next door to Moreno and Schneider's residence in the 2800 block of Depler Street. 3 dogs escaped the couple's fenced yard, but only 2 of the animals attacked the elderly couple, while the 3rd ran loose in the street. One of the dogs relentlessly bit Ramon, tearing off parts of his clothes, then ripping a dialysis shunt out of his body as he yelled for help and tried desperately to get away. The other dog stood nearby in the street, barking loudly, its face and neck stained with blood, not allowing witnesses to get close. Neighbors tried to fend off the hounds with a rake, a gushing hose, and a car horn, but none of those efforts stopped the attack. Before the dogs were contained, they attacked 2 more individuals. Eventually, all 3 dogs, described as American Staffordshire Terriers, were captured and euthanized by San Antonio Animal Care Services. The attack took the life of Ramon, with Juanita and other victims taken to the hospital and later being released. In August of 2023, Moreno and Schneider were charged with dangerous dog attacks causing death and recklessly causing injury to an elderly person. Subsequent information indicated that they were given until March of 2024 to accept a plea deal to avoid going to trial. Number 14. Jacqueline Durand. Dog sitter Jacqueline Durand, whose face was ripped off in a savage 800-bite mauling that took place at a home in Dallas, Texas, later shared the amazing results of her reconstructive surgery. The mauling transpired on December the 23rd of 2021, when 21-year-old Durand was about to look after 2 rescue dogs. One of the canines was a pit bull mix, while the other was a German shepherd. Durand had been hired by Ashley Joe Bishop and Justin Avery Bishop. Upon Durand's arrival at the residence, she was immediately pinned down by the bloodthirsty dogs and dragged through the corridor and into the living room. Her nose, ears, lips, and cheeks were injured, leaving her in a medically induced coma. After her recovery, Durand said that when she felt the skin hanging from her face, she thought she was going to die. She also said that the attack lasted half an hour before police arrived. Responding officers only discovered the victim after an alarm had been triggered by the front door being left open. The officers managed to get Durand to safety, and she was then rushed to the trauma ward, where she underwent a 7-hour-long emergency surgery just to survive. Durand later underwent 18 surgeries to rebuild her face. In 2023, she revealed the incredible outcome of her intense facial reconstruction surgeries to raise awareness about the dangers of dogs. Sharing her inspirational story online, Durand explained that doctors first took a skin graft from her buttocks and forehead to begin the reconstruction process. Her nose was then rebuilt using skin from near her hairline, and her lip was remade from skin on her left thigh. She told her followers on TikTok that it was a long road to recovery, but she was doing all right and was progressing. Durand also filed a lawsuit against the Bishops in January of 2022, demanding a jury trial and seeking over $1 million in damages. Despite that lawsuit having been filed almost 2 years ago, as of the making of this video, its outcome is still unclear. Scott B. A man identified only as Scott B. from Atlanta, Georgia, made a trip to his hunting stand north of Jefferson, where he was later attacked by 3 dogs and left with nearly 300 wounds. The harrowing incident unfolded on January the 15th of 2023, when the 61-year-old was moving his hunting stand on property he'd leased. Moments later, he was approached by 1 dog which immediately attacked him, upon which 2 others joined in. The dogs were attacking with a wolf mentality and were in a complete frenzy, according to Scott. He also said that he was unarmed at the time and had left his cell phone on his vehicle, which was 150 yards away from his ladder stand. The mauling transpired for about 15 minutes before the man was able to grab a large stick and use it to fight off the hounds. He then moved toward another ladder stand where he climbed to safety. After a half hour, Scott attempted to leave, however the dogs still tried to chase him. At that point, he decided to stay put for the time being. Eventually, Scott managed to run safely to the highway, where he yelled out for help to a passing car. He was subsequently taken to the emergency room, where he received treatment for puncture wounds and a severed ligament. Scott needed stitches in 7 different parts of his body and was later released. The 3 dogs, 2 of which resembled pit bulls and the other, a German shepherd, were recovered and put into a 10-day rabies quarantine. On February the 3rd, the dogs were put down, and the female owner received citations for having the dangerous animals. Number 12. Trinity Rowles. My dad's dog bit off my nose. Now I have hair growing on my face, according to Trinity Rowles, after undergoing surgery and recovering from a 100-pound pit bull attack suffered by her father's rescue dog. The 20-year-old had been mauled by the dog, Irish, on September the 9th of 2022 at her father's Pennsylvania home. Rowles said that on the day of the attack she had been arguing with her father, creating a heated environment which may have triggered the attack. Rowles added that the dog, which the family referred to as a great big teddy bear, unexpectedly sunk its teeth into her arms and pulled her around like playing a game of tug-of-war before ripping off the end of her nose. Rowles' father quickly responded and placed her in the fetal position while trying to protect her as much as he could. But Irish kept trying to get at the woman and continued to bite her. Rowles further stated that suddenly, like the flick of a switch, Irish just walked away and sat on the porch stairs. Emergency services were immediately called, and as they arrived, they put the victim on a stretcher. Rowles remembered hearing her father telling someone to handle the dog. He shouted, "Just do it!" before the sound of gunshots rang. She was taken to Holy Spirit Hospital and then transferred to Penn State Hershey Medical Center. Due to the severity of her injuries, she received treatment for the most pressing injuries over the course of 4 days before doctors started focusing on her nose reconstruction. Rowles subsequently had 4 surgeries, including a skin graft made from skin from her forehead and scalp, which meant the skin on her nose grew hair. Number 11. Jordan Callender. Englishman Jordan Callender was jailed over a frenzied attack carried out by his 2 XL bullies on another dog, leaving his owner covered in blood and fur. The 26-year-old was walking his dogs named Zeus and Thor in Stretford, UK, on the night of March the 6th of 2022, when they came across another dog and its owner. The owner of the husky dog named Samson, also out for a walk, said the 2 animals immediately charged at his dog, sniffing him before biting his head and back. In a witness statement read out by prosecutor Gareth Hughes at Manchester Magistrates Court, the owner said he tried to swing Samson around on his lead, but it then slipped off it and the dog tried to run back home with the other 2 dogs chasing him. He eventually caught up with them and picked Samson up before trying to run away. However, the 2 XL bully dogs pulled them both to the floor. The owner described the dogs as being hell-bent in their attack. He also added that one resident in the area came out with a tennis racket to try to intervene, but the dog still had hold of his husky. The resident picked the husky up and put him inside a closed gate, but he was then bitten in that process as well. The court heard how the 2 dogs, Zeus and Thor, consequently tried to get over the gate, with their owner saying that they were trying to finish what they started. An ambulance was called and the victims were taken to Manchester Royal Infirmary for x-rays and a tetanus vaccination. The owner was left with bite marks on his right hand and grazing on his knees. Fortunately, the victims, including Samson, survived the attack. Following the incident, Zeus and Thor were taken into police kennels at a cost of more than $5,000, and the latter was later euthanized due to an illness. Callender, who had previous convictions for dangerous driving and aggravated vehicle taking, pleaded guilty to owning dogs that were dangerously out of control in a public place, causing injury. District Judge Jane Hamilton ordered the destruction of the surviving dog and sentenced Callender to 4 months in prison. Additionally, Hamilton disqualified Callender from owning a dog for 5 years. The man was also ordered to pay $190 in compensation to both victims. Number 10. Kate Jackson. 35-year-old Kate Jackson, whose dog was attacked by an XL bully in Liverpool's Sefton Park, said she was 100% against plans to ban the breed. The attack took place shortly before 10 a.m. on July the 25th of 2023, while Jackson was walking her 10-month-old Hungarian Vizsla, Arthur. Jackson came across a man with 2 dogs, one of which she believed to be an XL bully. She said that the owner of the 2 dogs told her they're not friendly. Just moments before the XL bully grabbed Arthur by the neck before the woman could do anything, the bully had her dog by the throat and was dragging it. The man was shouting at his bully, but to no effect. The other, smaller dog subsequently joined in and was biting and pulling Arthur's ears, causing him to whimper. The 2 dog owners managed to separate the canines, and at that point, a verbal altercation briefly ensued between them. Jackson later took her dog to the emergency vet, where it was given 17 stitches to close a deep laceration to its neck. Arthur also had a puncture wound and injuries to his ear. The treatment cost Jackson at least $2,100. Jackson contacted Merseyside police following the incident, but investigating officers have decided to take no further action. She said she planned to submit a complaint to the force in the future, but didn't explain further as to why, despite her scary ordeal, she was still against a ban on the breed. Number 9. Colombian woman. In March of 2022, the New York Post reported about a viral video that captured a Colombian woman trying to escape from a horrific attack carried out by a pit bull. The ordeal took place inside an elevator in the woman's Cucuta apartment building. While the unnamed woman was putting on her shoes in her bedroom, a pit bull entered the bedroom and started attacking her. It was unclear why the 4-year-old dog started its attack, and it's even unclear who the dog belonged to, with some media outlets reporting it was her own dog and others claiming it belonged to someone else. After the animal jumped on the woman, she tried to flee to the hallway for help. Nobody came to her aid, and she managed to get into the elevator, but the dog followed her into it and continued the onslaught. The 25-year-old was in the clutches of the crazed animal, which she desperately tried to fight off in the cramped space. The bloodied woman was seen being mauled by the dog, which shook its head violently with its jaws latched onto her arm. The beast also bit her in the neck and legs before she was seen pressing a button to take the elevator to the lobby. At one point, the animal was seen dragging her out of the lift. Upon reaching the lobby, people finally rushed to the woman's aid and took her to Erasmo Mioes University Hospital. The woman had to undergo a medical procedure for her fractured fingers and wounds. In the aftermath, authorities seized the animal and held it for a behavioral analysis. It was unclear if any charges were made in connection with the incident. Number 8. Joanne Robinson. The mother of an English woman mauled to death by her own pet dog at her Rotherham home said she warned her daughter something bad was going to happen 2 weeks before she died. 43-year-old Joanne Robinson had been fatally attacked by her American Bully XL dog after it allegedly turned mad in the extreme heat in July of 2022. Joanne died at the scene of the attack at her residence, while her partner, Jamie Steed, was left with injuries to his hands, stomach, and face as he tried to pull the animal off her. Joanne's mother, Dot, said her daughter had tried to do everything right, but her 18-month-old dog was simply too big and strong. She said that the dog in question had fought with Joanne's other pet dog on several instances, upon which she warned Joanne to get rid of one of them. In the wake of Joanne's death, both dogs were destroyed. Number 7. Nicholas Vasquez. The owners of 3 dogs involved in a brutal attack that killed 51-year-old Nicholas Vasquez were charged under the Texas felony dog attack statute. The vicious attack unfolded on June the 9th of 2022 near the intersection of Harvard Road and Knoll Lane in Houston. Vasquez had been walking home from the grocery store when a group of canines charged at him at full speed. A neighbor found the victim in a ditch, partially eaten alive and moaning after having tried to fight off the dogs. Vasquez underwent multiple limb amputations before dying from organ failure on June the 19th. The dogs were identified as 3 large pit bulls and were found covered in blood. They were seized by Harris County Animal Control following the incident. Investigators determined that there was a hole in the owner's fence from which the dogs had escaped. Harris County court records indicated that the estate of Vasquez filed a civil claim against the owners, Tabitha and Matthew Satchel, seeking damages of over $200,000. The causes of action included negligence and wrongful death. In May of 2023, the family lawyers reportedly obtained a settlement on behalf of Vasquez's estate. The amount, however, wasn't disclosed. Number 6. Stephanie Jones. In April of 2021, Welshwoman Stephanie Jones bought an American bully from an unlicensed breeder and was later bitten by the pup 25 times. The 32-year-old said that she should have spotted the red flags when she bought the bully Pit, which she named Chase. When she arrived to collect the 10-week-old puppy, she was refused entry into the breeder's home. However, Jones, who lived near Swansea, persisted and bought the pup for nearly $4,000. The breeder promised to send all the paperwork through the mail, but Jones never received anything. After taking Chase home, Jones noticed a large scar on his ear. She contacted the breeder and questioned him on the matter. The man replied saying it must have been done by the dog's mother. But when Jones tried to ask questions about the outstanding paperwork and the proof of his license to breed, he threatened her via voicemail saying he knew where she lived. Jones later found out that the breeder was purportedly unlicensed. A few months later, Chase attacked Jones's Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Then in August of 2021, he went for another family dog in front of Jones's young children. The mother intervened and grabbed Chase's collar, at which point she was mauled by Chase, who was 6 months old at the time. Jones was taken to a hospital and Chase was put to sleep. Number 5. Ian Langley. Shortly before 7 p.m. on October the 4th of 2023, authorities received a report that a dog had injured a man on Maple Terrace in Houghton-le-Spring, England. Responding emergency services arrived at the scene and attended the victim. Ian Langley, the 54-year-old, had been walking his Patterdale Terrier pup in a village called Shiny Row when an XL bully struck him. The dog grabbed him by the neck as he bent down to pick up his pup. The mauling left Langley needing CPR for around 15 minutes as emergency services fought to staunch heavy bleeding from his wounds. Responding officers arrived at the scene and put the bully down to ensure the safety of the public. They spoke to the 44-year-old owner and seized a second dog from his address. As a precaution, Langley's pup ran away during the attack, but was later recovered and unharmed. The day after the attack, Langley succumbed to his injuries. As of the latest updates, the owner of the bully was arrested on suspicion of murder, and a murder probe was launched. Number 4. Katie Deary. 31-year-old English woman Katie Deary had to endure a 5-hour surgery on both of her arms, including 50 stitches, and the repair of her left finger, which was partially amputated after a canine attack. Deary was out walking her dog on August the 17th of 2023, along with her daughter, who was in a pushchair, when she spotted a loose dog, later identified as an XL bully, from across the street on Doncaster Road in Askern. She became worried about its demeanor. Deary immediately picked up her pet dog and carried on walking. But before she knew it, the XL bully ran across the road and leapt towards her, gripping onto her arm. Meanwhile, Deary's dog jumped out of her arms and ran away, with the XL bully then shifting its attention to Deary and her daughter. A man only identified as Stephen, who'd witnessed the incident from the road, jumped out of his truck and ran to Deary's direction to help. The woman tried to push the pram towards Stephen and asked him to get her daughter to safety. In an act of incredible bravery, Stephen managed to pull the dog off Deary and free her arm before calling an ambulance. Deary, who was pouring blood, was taken by responding paramedics to Northern General Hospital. The injuries she suffered had left her unable to feed or dress herself or her toddler in the aftermath of her surgery. In the wake of the incident, the XL bully was seized by law enforcement and ultimately destroyed. Speaking of this, Deary said that she was an animal lover and didn't wish for any creature to be destroyed. She added that, however, if a dog attacked a child, then that dog should be killed. Number 3. Clevie Nelson and Tyler Marchese. On November the 22nd of 2022, a judge ruled to terminate 3 pit bulls that had caused serious bodily injuries on 3 individuals at a trailer park complex in El Paso, Texas. The attack had taken place at the Heritage Park in northeast El Paso on November the 9th, when 3 pit bulls managed to get loose. It was unclear how the dogs had escaped from the area where they had been held, but when they did, they immediately attacked an elderly resident in the area. The victim's neighbor, Clevie Nelson, stepped in and tried to help, but the dogs were relentless and also started biting her. The 2 women screamed in pain and were heard by another neighbor by the name of Tyler Marchese. The man immediately took off barefoot from his home and attempted to save the woman. At that point, all 3 neighbors were now being mauled by the canines. Fortunately, the elderly woman managed to get into a safe place while Nelson and Marchese continued fighting until they got to a higher place where they couldn't get bitten. The 3 victims were taken to the hospital where they were treated for injuries. In the immediate aftermath, the dogs were taken into custody by El Paso Animal Services and placed under a 10-day quarantine. Marchese, who'd suffered injuries to his face, arms and legs, said that the dog owner should realize the pain that the incident had caused their neighborhood. Nelson, who'd sustained injuries to her legs, right ankle, and hand, stated that the same pit bulls had escaped before. She said they'd been reported, but nothing had been done. Officials with Animal Services provided witness testimonies during a hearing in connection with the incident, which ultimately led to the court's final decision to put the 3 pit bulls down. Number 2. Natasha Johnston. A dog walker died after suffering massive blood loss caused by multiple bites to the neck while she was out with a pack of dogs at a park in Caterham, England. Natasha Johnston was purportedly experienced in walking dogs. However, while the 28-year-old was handling 8 canines at around 2:30 p.m. on January the 12th of 2023, at Gravely Hill Common Park, the pack pounced on her for some reason. A witness said that Johnston was screaming and shouting as she was being swamped by the dogs, mauling at her and pulling her arms and sides. The witness added that surprisingly there was no barking. The witness further stated that when she was approaching, Johnston spotted her and yelled, "Turn back, turn back." The woman was pronounced dead at the scene at around 3 p.m. When police responded, they recovered the dogs. They also determined that there was another woman who'd been attacked and bitten by one of the dogs. She was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The official cause of Johnston's death was later revealed to be shock and hemorrhage following the perforation of the left jugular vein. It was believed that the dog that inflicted the fatal wounds was Natasha's own American Bully XL, which was consequently put down in the wake of the incident. 2 of their dogs were returned to their owners while the remaining 5 were placed in private kennels. Among the pack that Johnston was walking that day was a Leonberger named Shiva. The dog had previously appeared in a 2017 BBC program about bad puppy behavior, during which the owner shared that the dog earned its name because it was so unruly. In the end, no prosecutions were brought against any individuals. Number 1. Lacadia Reynolds. On June the 6th of 2023, Englishwoman Lacadia Reynolds was strolling along Abbots Park in Lambeth, South London, when 3 dogs attacked her. 2 of the dogs, which were off their leads, had come up to the 24-year-old as she was walking. The owner of the 2 dogs approached while having a 3rd dog that was on a lead. Reynolds asked the owner to take the 2 dogs away from her, and the man instructed them to do so. However, they didn't react to his instructions. Instead, they jumped up and started attacking Reynolds, biting and scratching her skin. The owner couldn't get the dogs off of the woman and even started to ask for help. The 3rd dog subsequently joined in the mauling, causing Reynolds to fall to the ground and scream out. The dog surrounded her and continued pouncing at her. The terrifying attack lasted several minutes as bystanders witnessed from a distance. One of the witnesses even filmed the attack, and the footage would later go viral. Reynolds didn't get any help, but she was able to escape by pulling off her hoodie. A law enforcement vehicle which happened to be nearby took her to a hospital. The attack left the victim with nerve and muscle damage, as well as a lip injury, an arm injury, and scratches and bites on her legs. She also suffered nerve damage to one of her arms that doctors didn't know she would ever recover from. In an interview with Leading Britain's Conversation, Reynolds said that her arm wound was really deep and that she could actually see fat and underlying structures in it. In the aftermath, authorities investigated and determined that the 2 dogs were XL bullies and the 3rd dog was an American Pit Bull Terrier. At the time, the latter was a prohibited type under the United Kingdom's Dangerous Dogs Act. The police said that the owner was informed and decided to give up ownership. Since the dog was a banned breed and a risk to the public, combined with the fact that the woman had already sustained a serious injury, the dog was euthanized. The other dogs remained in police kennels while further inquiries were carried out. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get roasted by your favorite comedian or get to prank your least favorite celebrity? Let us know in the comments section below.